Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, it's Vandy. So back at another Card Fight Vanguard deck profile. So guys, you definitely like, comment, subscribe, and donate to Patreon. Let's go start, shall we? Today we have Keter Sanctuary, MLB. I'm not sure how to feel about MLB, because here's my thing. My whole thing with set 5, and I'm glad that it turned out this way, is that set 5 wasn't meant to, introduce or, make a lot of decks really good or make them broken, but it was just to introduce 5 new decks and then give the encounter decks a little bit of a little push, not to where they're meta breaking, but to where they're good-ish. So when MLB got revealed, I was kind of like, I'm gonna hate this, aren't I? Because I really loved MLB and V, but at the same time, MLB and V was really fucking good. So seeing this one, it's definitely obviously a downgrade, but at the same time, it's a balanced downgrade, I guess. So we'll see how far my opinion develops on this deck profile as we go through it. So first up today, our starter will be Wingal Brave, grade 0, boost, 5k shield, 6k base, auto wins, roto penny, point, second draw card. Not too special about it, standard starter. My only thing with this is, I hate the fact that this is the starter. I really wish this was a grade 1 with the on-hit look at top 7 for a blaster. Reason why? Because I gave my friend PTSD from this card when one time my opening hand was it was 2 Wingal Braves, a Blaster Dark, I want to say it was. I didn't have a grade 3, and this was back when MLB first got released in V, and I think it was a critical trigger, and I forgot what the last card is. I drew for turn, it was a Wingal Brave, ride Wingal Brave, skill of starter, draw a card, another Wingal Brave. I called all 3 Wingal Braves, rushed him down, he took both of them, and then I just looked at top 14, and technically top 28, but, separate top 7s and got a bunch of cards. Basically, he now guards every Wingal Brave boosted attack, because he's afraid of the on-hit. So I love this starter. I really wish he was a grade 1, but I am cool with it because you can call him out of soul with the ability of the Vanguard. So Wingal Brave is a mandatory starter for this deck, by the way, just in case. And then we have our over-triggering Light Dragon Deity of Honors Amartinoa. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k base. Over-triggering, and then when we're triggering your deck, reveals a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one of your units, plus melee for the turn. And if you revealed it during your drive check, activate additional effect, which is until end of turn, you also perform drive checks for your rear guard battles. Okay. That's good. Most likely, depending on how your board is, you might just lose out on a column for that rearguard battle drive check. But either way, that's still pretty good. This deck can easily make a board, get drive checks, add a bunch of hand cards. MLB can do things with that, so especially with triple drive on MLB. So Amartinoa is actually a really good card. And Elbari wouldn't really help that much because, like I said, depending on how your field is, you might end up losing a column. So while it would guarantee who you give the million to, it's also just making it easier for PG fodder. So Amartinoa is a nice over-trigger choice for this, so one of. Then our other triggers are 3 draw triggers and protection magic Prorobi. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k base. Draw trigger contains guard circle. If your opponent's Vanguard trigger, they get plus 5k shield. You want the draws to get the hand cards and see both Blaster Dark and Blaster Blade, etc. Then we got the Bard of Heavenly Song Outpack. Grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k base. Continues guard circle. If your opponent's Vanguard trigger, they get plus 5k shield. Yeah, like I said before, you are going to lose out on a column most likely, but the reason why I'm choosing more fronts over the draws is because more power to 2 units over more power to 1 unit, and in case you don't lose a column. So 4 of Alpac. And we have 4 Blade Feather Dragon, our critical, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k base, auto rear at the end of battle, booster, shove to soul, choose one of your plus 2 for the turn. Okay, it doesn't get as much soul as VMOB does, but doesn't have a soul problem to where it needs this. So 4 of, you don't need to run it for that skill, but you want it just because. And we have our 4 heals and Healer of Heavenly Staff, Arshes. Yep, so I run normal heal. I don't like the counter heals. I feel like they're too situational, even though, yes, a lot of the quote-unquote good D decks are I don't know why I was saying quote-unquote, a lot of those D decks are restanders or gain extra criticals. I just don't like them. I don't know why, just the amount of, the 5k shield difference bothers me a lot, so I'm not going to use them in the situation where if I did use them, I might lose without that 5k shield, because there are a lot of situations I can recall where I would have lost if I used them. So that's my opinion on it. If you want to run the counter heals, feel free to, but I prefer not to. And that's our trigger lineup. On to the grade 1s. 3 copies of Glint Breath Dragon, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 7k base, continues rearguard guard circle. If your soul has 2 more blaster, grade 2s, and they're different card names, this unit gets plus 2k power and 5k shield. They had to restrict everything about blasters. Come on, it's not whatever they do here. It wouldn't greatly break whatever's in premium. I'm 95% sure of that. Specifically 2 grade 2 blasters and different card names. Okay, premium is not that hard to hit. It's easier, but here you got 2 different grade 2s, and that's pretty much it. But okay, At least he's a 9k base with a 10k shield. Personally, until this was revealed, I actually ran Marron in this place, and Marron's actually a really good grade 1. It's one of the best ride line grade 1s in my opinion, but I ended up choosing Glint Brave solely because shield value. If it wasn't for that, if it didn't gain shield, I would have just kept Marron. So 3 copies of Glint Brave because he is good, and he also has a cool art. Then we have 4 copies of my least favorite card in this deck solely because of its ability alone, Knight of Friendship K. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, continues weird during the battle that it boosted Knight of Loyalty Bedivere. This unit gets +5. So 13k booster, but only if it boosted Bedivere. I really wish it was just if Bedivere's on board, it gets the 5k boost, but it's fine. You don't run for the skill first off, because this deck, the number doesn't matter. It helps. It does help with a 15k drop, but that number rarely comes into account. The reason why you run this is because Bedivere can get you a K, and you can use this to make a board, and when MLB is constantly sending 2 of your rear guards to soul, assuming that you constantly have a Blaster Blade and Blaster Dark available, you at least want to have a board to attack with each turn, so having a Bedivere go into a K is really nice, and even after Bedivere dies and K becomes a vanilla until you summon another Bedivere in front of it, you at least have a booster that you more or less got for free, quote unquote. Not really, but still. So 4 of K, he is helpful. Despite the fact having one of the worst skills in the game, him being a part of Bedivere's skill inherently makes him good, so 4 of. Then we have 4 of the zebra thing that classifies as dragon, apparently. Aegismare Dragon, grade 1 boost, 5k, not 5k shield, 6k base, 0 shield, continuous sentinel, 4 sentinels on your deck, and auto is put on guard circle, choose random units, and cannot be hit to end a battle if your hand has 2 or more cards. Choose a card from hand discarded. Standard PG, nothing special about it. If you don't know what that means if this and only one of the cards in your hand, when you place it on guard circle, you do not have to discard 4, which is really nice because that means you can be as aggressive as you want in the game, and then just still be as defensive as you can be in the later game, and not die to stupid decisions you did earlier, like, for example, calling a PG and a heal trigger to do multi-attack and then get shut down by a defensive trigger. Yes, because that was one of the smartest decisions of my entire lifetime. Yeah. Weirdly enough, that actually didn't end up resulting in my victory, and that's a long story that we will describe later, but yeah, so, take stupid risk as long as these are in your deck. 4 of Aegismare Dragon, because the PG saves you from yourself. Or me, one of the two. And then our last grade 1 is the grade 1 of the ride line, who has one of the best looking arts in the game. In my opinion, I really like how they do the encounter arts, and it's not really because of the encounter arts, but like the text boxes for the skills and the, I guess, flavor texts. I don't know, combining that with the arts, they make them look really good compared to something like this, because this feels standard. This feels actually good, even though they're the same rarity, right? Yeah, they're the same rarity, so... Anyways, Little Sage Marron, auto when it's rode upon by a grade 2 unit with Blaster in its card name. Look at top 7, choose up to 1 grade 2 card with Blaster in its card name, reveal it, put it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. And if you did not reveal, choose a Wingal Brave from your soul, you may call it to rear. And continues rear guard during your turn. If you have 3 more units, this unit gets plus 2k. Okay, 10k booster, real easy to hit. Nothing too bad about it, because it doesn't have to swing, it doesn't have to specifically boost, it just gets 2k as long as you have 3 or more units, including itself, and the Vanguard, so that already nets you 2 of them, you just need 1 more, and boom, you got your 10. But... think about that first skill. So you have 2 different Blaster grade 2s in this deck, not counting premium. So that's really nice that he can work with either one of them being in the ride line, and not to mention he can search for the other one to benefit MLB for later purposes, whether you're playing premium or not. And if you did not get a card, you get to call Wingal Brave. And now, while getting a 6k booster is okay-ish, the reason that that's there is because more likely than not you're running Blaster Dark in your ride line, because Blaster Dark, no offense to Blaster Blade, but Blaster Dark genuinely is like the better grade 2 out of the 2 in most situations. I say most. There are situations where I say Blaster Blade is better, but in most situations Blaster Dark is better. So getting that rear guard 2 kill for Blaster Dark skill is amazing. Marron is a great grade 1. That is why you run Wingal Brave as your starter, by the way, and just to smite your opponents. 1 of Marron in the ride deck. If it wasn't for Glint Brave Shield, it would also be a 3 of in the main deck, but it's not. Then we go on to grade 2s. 4 copies of Knight of Loyalty Bedivere. Grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base. I love this man's swords this time. Every time there's something new I like about his art, and this time it's the swords. So the swords just look so cool. Auto when it's placed on rear guard from hand, if your vanguards are grade 3 or greater, anything. Counterblast 1, soul blast 1, search deck to 1 Knight of Friendship K, call it to rear guard and send calm as you and shuffle your deck. Okay, cool. So you can put K behind him. So at least for that turn you got a 23k swing, unless your opponent just now griffins it, or defeat flares it, but that's only talking premium standards. So, Bedivere is pretty nice. Get you a rear guard that can be used for setup later, because it's not always about the current turn that you use it in. You also have to think about endgame results, because I can think of plenty of times where I've done something stupid and I called a rear guard very early on. It did nothing for the entirety of the game, and then at the very end of the game, I called a unit to that rear guard, or like in front of that rear guard, and if I didn't call that rear guard before, I probably would have put it somewhere else, and that rear guard wouldn't have been able to hit, and I probably wouldn't have won because of that extra attack. So, moral of the story is, even a card that turns into a vanilla after Bedivere dies is still useful, because Bedivere can get him out and make a board with it later and quickly, and it's not a once per turn. So worst case scenario, if you're out of blasters and you have 2 Bediveres in hand, counterblast 2, soul blast 2, get 2 Ks, you immediately have 4 of your 5 units. So 4 of Bedivere, he's an amazing grade 2, and there's no reason not to run him at 4, and obviously by default you have to run K at 4. Then we have 4 copies of Blaster Blade, none in the ride deck. This is not our ride deck, grade 2. Unfortunately, I really wanted to run Blaster Blade in the ride deck, but after seeing what MLB and Marron do, yeah, Blaster Dark is just inherently better. I had hopes for Blaster Blade, but they immediately got erased. Grade 2 5k shield, 10k base. I love his sword in this one. I don't like his stance, but I do love his sword. Auto, when it's placed on Vanguard, counterblast 1, choose an opponent's rear guard, kill it, and if you did not retire, you get to draw a card. And auto, when it's placed on rear, counterblast 1, choose an opponent's grade 2 or greater rear guard and kill it. I think that's it's definitely a new part of the skill for Blaster Blade, because none of his retire abilities ever let him draw back in the original, but now they are counterblast 1, which is nice, and just like the original Blaster Blade, it had 2 different abilities. I believe when it was placed on Van, it was counterblast 2 to kill a unit, and if it maybe in the front row, or maybe just a unit in general, and I think it was on rear, counterblast 2, kill a grade 2 or greater, so it was like kind of representative of his old skill. Otherwise I'm just crazy, but is there like a representative of his old skill, which is really nice, and if it was on Van, you get the plus off it if you didn't kill, so that's really nice. I would put this in the ride there. Like I said before, there are situations where you want to put this in the ride deck because, maybe for the sakes of Marron, like for you, maybe your luck is really bad for the blasters and you won't see both the blasters always. So maybe you want to, instead of relying on Marron's skill to call Wingal Brave for Blaster Dark skill, instead you would run Blaster Blade to use Marron's skill to search for a grade 2 and then use Blaster Blade to possibly net you a draw or a murder of a rear guard for the same cost as Blaster Dark. Because technically they both get twin drive. Technically, in the sense that Blaster Blade nets you the same amount of hand cards that Blaster Dark does, unless you see a draw trigger, but still. Or unless Blaster Dark sees 2 draw triggers. But point is, Blaster Blade's a really nice card. It's always debatable if you want to run Blaster Blade or Blaster Dark in your ride line. It depends on your luck, your skill, what you feel comfortable with. For me, as much as I want to run Blaster Blade, I think Blaster Dark is just inherently better. So that's why I run it. But if you want to run Blaster Blade, that's fine with you. 4 of Blaster Blade in my deck. Then our last grade 2 is the grade 2 of our ride line. 3 of in the ride line. Sorry, what? No, 3 in the main deck, 1 in the ride deck of Blaster Dark. Grade 2, intercept 5k shield, 10k base. Items placed on Van or rear, counterblast 1, retire another rear guard, choose an opponent's rear guard, kill it, and this unit gets a drive for the turn. So twin drive, really nice, really good, and if you can combine it with Amartinoa when you swing with this, if this wasn't sent to soul before with MLB skill, this gets you get technically quad drive for the turn, at least from this in the Vanguard. So that's really nice. And continues rear guard during turn. If your rear guard was retired this turn, it gets +5. Okay, downsides to this. There's only 1 card in this deck that can retire your rear guards, and that is this. Good side is, it doesn't save by effects, which means you can just kill your rear guards by calling over them. So, there's the plus on Blaster Dark. Blaster Dark all-arounds are really nice grade 2 in this deck. Worst case scenario, you can just call over something of +5, and not to mention the fact that he can get an extra drive is really helpful on that grade 2 turn. Like I said, if you want to run Blaster Blade, you can, or even though side decking is not allowed, I think you are allowed in tournaments, you would be allowed to switch out your ride line before the match starts, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think. So, consistency works there, but I do prefer Blaster Dark, and then typically I already have a Blaster Blade in hand, so I don't feel bad about using Marron to call Wingal Brave, but I most likely will call an extra rear guard down just in case I really think I need that search. So 3 of a Blaster Dark in the main deck, and 1 of in the ride deck. And then we move on to our last normal unit in the deck, but of course not the last card in the deck, is 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck of our only grade 3 and our main grade 3, Majesty Lord Blaster. I gotta say, I love everything about this card in terms of stance. Grade 3, Twin Drive Persona Right, 13k base, continues Vanguard. If your soul has Blaster Blade and Blaster Dark in its soul, this unit gets +2k power and 1 critical during both players' turns. So 15k base and double critical. Okay, so definitely not as powerful as the original MLB, or not the original, because it's definitely better than the original. But like what I mean by that is better than the VMLB, because VMLB gets a crit, gets a drive, and 18k base. This one is obviously not as bad, but it's still good because as proven from the electricity monster from, I think it was set 4 or set 3 that Brandgate got, that 15k base thing that said I think it can't attack if you don't have a set order in your order zone. If I remember correctly, I saw a Brandgate deck or two top from that card. So 15k base seems to be the thing to go with. So it's definitely not as strong, but it apparently, based off of history, will probably have a really good effect on tournament meta. Why do I care? I'm not a tournament person, but you get the point. It's a good skill. And auto van, when it attacks a Vanguard, perform all the following. You can choose to perform only one. Downside is you're performing this as much as possible. So even though you could choose to only perform one, you have to perform at least one based off of what it says. Now, if you can't perform any, obviously you don't perform any, but yeah, if you have the rear guards, you got to do it. So put a Blaster Blade up from rear into soul, choose an opponent's rear guard and kill it. So easy, and put a Blaster Dark to soul, and this unit gets a drive for the turn. So I like how their skills are basic. I like how it skills basically what the grade 2 unit does. Like, for example, Blaster Dark could get an extra drive. Okay, this gives it an extra drive when you set Blaster Dark to soul. Blaster Blade kills a rear guard. What does this do? Kills a rear guard. So really nice. Doesn't cost any counter blast. Doesn't cost any soul blast, and that's amazing because that means the rest of your counter blast and soul blast can go to your orders. It can go to like Blaster Dark, Blaster Blade, Bedivere. Literally, MLB is probably one of my favorite grade 3s. And here's my thing. I don't like this deck because, in my opinion, the V version is definitely a lot slower than the D version is definitely a lot slower than V, and I'm still kind of getting used to that adjustment period from the speed of how the V version works to the speed of how the D version works. But the D version works really well just because it doesn't cost any counter blast and soul blast, which means your deck can. It's kind of like a row where everything that isn't the main grade 3, which your whole deck is built around, can do whatever the fuck it wants, and you can pay any cost for it because the Vanguard doesn't need it. So as long as you get like the Blaster Blade and Blaster Dark, you're good. So you can use Bedivere to get a board, you can use Blaster Blade and Blaster Dark with any spare counter blast to start nuking shit, and your order that can search them, it does what I just said, search them. So all around, MLB is an amazing grade 3. You see, he doesn't look it, but he genuinely is really good. Free kill of a rear guard, free extra drive possibly, double crit and 15k base. What's not to like? 3 of them in the main deck, 1 of them in the right deck. And then we move on to our final few cards. First up, we have 2 copies of our normal order. Bravery to stand against, will to pierce through. Grade 3 normal order, play it by counterblasting 1 if you have a Vanguard Blaster in its card name. Yeah, Blaster. Weirdly enough, you look at both the Blaster orders, both of them just specify Blasters. They don't specify full names, so you can use them in their own respective decks, the one with the arts on them, or you could just shove this into PBO and vice versa with their Blitz order. Anyways, Counterblast 1 if you have a Vanguard Blaster in its card name. Search after 1 grade 2 unit card with Blaster in its card name, reveal it, put it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. So, say for example, you need to kill a rear guard this turn, get Blaster Blade. Say for example, you needed to get a drive this turn, get Blaster Dark. Or just say for example, you're missing one of the 2 for his 2k and a crit skill, get the one that you're missing. All around, order is amazing. This order's at 2, the other one's at 3. If you want to swap those numbers around, you can, but I feel like this is the one that's better to run at 2 just because I see Blaster Blade and Blaster Dark pretty easily in this deck, or at least for me personally. And not to mention the deck does kind of get counterblast heavy when you're trying to make sure that you're consistently getting control of the board. So 2 of will to pierce against. And our last card in the deck is 3 copies of Blessing of the Hell Dragon. Grade 3 Blitz order. Choose one of your Vanguards with Blaster on their card names being attacked, and until end of battle, it gets plus 15k. Cool, so this might hit 30 if you're on Blaster Blade and Blaster Dark and Soul. And then choose one of your rear guards, you may retire it. If you retired, it gets plus another 15. Cool, so 45. Definitely being on that 2k makes a difference because there are a lot of close calls I've had before where thanks to that like even amount, my opponent could break through if they saw triggers. That 2k, or technically just 1k would make the difference, but that 2k genuinely makes the difference because it makes it harder, because 28 would normally be a 2 to pass on a Vanguard, plus 2 more, okay, yeah, it's still a 2 to pass, but for most swings, they would be hitting for like the even number of 18, or like the magical number, so having that extra 2k makes it so you have to drop less cards. So all around, I like this order, I like this deck, I think it's good. So 3 of Blessing of Hell Dragon. Like I said before, you can switch these numbers around, but I prefer this way. And that's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, MLB is a genuine, in my opinion, it is a genuinely good deck. Like, it's strong. It's definitely not as fast as V, but that's not important because it wasn't meant to be as broken as V was. It was meant to be balanced, not overshadowing anything. You get extra crits. You get extra drives. Its abilities literally activate for free. You can murder a rear guard. You have 2 different ride line grade 2s that are always going to be interchangeable. You have one of the best ride line grade 1s in my opinion, both in terms of ride deck skill and in terms of like rear guard active skill. you have one of my favorite starters in the game, which is an illogical point, and the deck is just weirdly consistent. So all right, I think it's a fun deck to play, and based off of what I saw, these prices are going to be pretty cheap in Japan, so maybe they'll be cheap in the US too. So pick this deck up when you get the chance. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, donate to the Patreon, join Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to stand up your vanguards.